You know that feeling when you sit down to draw and nothing feels right? Like, no matter what you try to put on the page, it just does not flow. That's the joy of art block. It's demotivating. And worst of all, it makes you second guess your skills. You start questioning whether you even know how to draw anymore. But here's the thing. Sometimes the best way to get past art block is to just draw something. The worst thing you can do is sit there staring at a blank page, waiting for the perfect idea to show up. That's why today, after 2 full weeks of art block, I'm drawing a full sketchbook spread of cats. They are one of the best things to draw when you're feeling stuck, and they can be simplified into really basic forms, so you don't have to feel pressured to get every little detail perfect. In fact, they give you a balance between structure and freedom. If you want to challenge yourself, you can focus on getting anatomy or the fur texture just right. But if you're feeling loose, which you probably are if you're in an art block state, then you can just sketch their gestures and exaggerate their poses. So I'm starting out with colored pencils. At this stage, I decided to do the next sketch directly in my sketchbook with the intention of building a composition in there that would include all the sketches in the singular spread. At first, it was going well. I was layering soft tones, blending colors, mixing media, just enjoying the process. I particularly enjoy drawing this little guy peeking out from the bottom corner. So I decided on putting down a dark purple to black gradient in the background and intended to have the colored pencil sketches from earlier pasted down in this area above the peeking cat. But that's when things started to shift. So you know that moment when you're deep into a piece and suddenly you see a few problems? Yeah, that's what's happening here. I'd been so focused on drawing each individual cat that I completely ignored how they'd fit together on the page. The composition was unbalanced, it felt awkward, the pieces were too isolated, and even with this clear focal point, I knew that was not my best technical work for it to deserve the center stage of the spread. I had to make a choice. Do I push through, hoping that I can somehow salvage it, or do I admit that it's not working and start fresh? I'm sure this crossroad is something every artist can relate to, and here's how I generally decide. If a piece just feels unfinished, lacking contrast or details, then pushing through is the answer. Sometimes a drawing just looks awkward because it's still in the early stages and you've got to trust the process with art. But when the foundation itself is wrong, when the placement, balance or structure is flawed, then no amount of shading or detailing will save it. And that was where I was at. At this point, the worst thing I could do was keep forcing it. And that's how you end up overworking a piece, adding more and more detail in an attempt to fix it until eventually it just looks messy and overcomplicated, which is something I've also been guilty of in the past. So instead of wasting time trying to force something that isn't working, I decided to pivot. I'm not scrapping everything though, just taking what does work and salvaging and reusing that. I chose to save this little peeking guy in the corner and then glue together the pages. And this was my way of saying, all right, that version, attempt number 1, it's like it never existed. Now that I have a fresh start, I'm focusing on composition. I started out with my strong suite, simple graphite realistic drawing as my new focal point for this attempt. And keeping the peeking guy in the right corner seemed to work even better here than it did in the original layout. Although the colored pencil sketches from earlier would not have worked well in the original layout, I think they actually turned out half decent, so I decided to stick to my original plan and incorporate them into this area above the peeking guy. At this stage, I felt comfortable that I'd made the right decision. While I didn't need to completely start from scratch, this new layout was a better framework for my pieces to sit in. I made a conscious decision to leave the left-hand side of the spread in black and white, with the colored pencil pieces remaining on the opposite end. As a fun idea, I also drew a little doggy peeking in to see what the cats were getting up to. Here are some simple tricks I considered to make the spread look more cohesive, which you can also bear in mind if you find yourself struggling to tie your spread together. 1. Common line directions. You can link your sketches by making sure that the curves and angles naturally flow into each other. For example, if you've drawn a cat with the tail curved upwards, maybe the next one follows that motion, and this just makes the spread feel more intentional. Second point, consistent color accents. This is a big one for me here, so I repeated small pops of the same colors in the same pattern throughout the spread. Number 3, overlap and interaction. So instead of keeping the sketches separate, you could consider allowing some of the elements to overlap slightly or at least interact visually. So if you do have a cat's tail curling, it could maybe enter into another sketch so it feels like everything becomes part of the same world. And then number 4, negative space awareness. Making sure the gaps between sketches are balanced. If one area feels too crowded, I adjust the spacing. And with these adjustments, the spread actually came together quite well. It has movement, it has balance, and a sense of unity that was missing before. The whole process just reminded me of something important. Sometimes a failed piece isn't a failure. It's just the first draft of something better. Sometimes the best thing you can do is take what works, let go of what doesn't, and rebuild with a clearer direction. Don't be afraid to step back and rethink. Whether it's art block or a composition that refuses to cooperate, the most important thing is to keep moving forward. If you've ever had a piece that just wouldn't come together, let me know in the comments. What did you do? Did you push through or did you restart? Let's talk about it. And if you found this helpful, don't forget to like and subscribe for more art content.